Okay, hello everybody. We are Stranger Space, and we're here presenting our LMS Gamification Asset Package, or LGAP for short. I'm Christopher Poole.
I'm Cody Brown.
I'm LaGrase.
I'm Elena Lopez.
And let's get started.
So, what is the LMS Gamification Asset Package? What was the whole purpose of this internship? Well, very simply put, we wanted to make a tool that would streamline the process of making educational games. So we took Unity, a very popular game engine, and Canvas, a very popular LMS, the learning management system our school uses, and we made a tool that essentially gives Unity access to the Canvas's API calls. This means that as a developer, you don't have to spend any time learning the Canvas API tools. We did that for you, and our asset package does all the heavy lifting.
So, it's right there in the name of our product, gamification. And I'm sure a lot of you have heard this buzzword before, but let's run down what it actually means. At its core, gamification is just incorporating game elements into something, whether that be point scoring, leaderboards, or competition. However, when we talk about gamification, we're talking about fully fledged educational games. We're not talking about just scoring points or getting stars for correct answers. That's actually gamification that's been implemented for a very long time now. We're talking about games centered around science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and that's what we're focusing on.
So you might ask, why are we using gamification for our project? Well, games make learning fun. Most people would rather have fun playing a game than maybe sit through a boring lecture. That's just some people's opinions. But it also, gamification helps to improve attentiveness, because if you're sitting there and you're playing through a game, you're actually learning while not knowing that you're actually learning. So people tend to pay more attention. And a lot of companies, if they use gamification, they implement some kind of reward system that could be used in a lot of schools to give that little bit of extra incentive. Now, a quote that I found: gamification allows for the creation of well-designed experiences in problem solving. See, our asset package allows people to simplify the action of bringing games to the classroom so that they can create those experiences.
So regarding our general work experience that we gained over the course of this project, working together for this internship opportunity gave us, as a group, really valuable professional teamwork experience together. We gained insight on the development of a project from start to finish. Since this was a self-guided internship, we needed to take the initiative in order for us to plan, organize, and execute our plan effectively. We had to have clear planning, effective task delegation for each of us to know what exactly we're doing, and a strong work ethic throughout the entire process. We wore several hats, all of us, throughout the entire project, taking on many different roles, learning many different skills, including research, communication with our supervisors and our target audience. We learned how to effectively code with an API interface. We learned how to create a UI. We learned how to do bug testing and code documentation, and how to make a nice PowerPoint. By the end of our internship, all of us have gained not only the obvious experience of learning how to write code to make a software that interfaces with an API, but also the valuable peripheral communication skills in order to effectively create software as a team.
So at the beginning of the year, or the beginning of our internship, we defined our learning objectives, which were things that we wanted to work on over the course of the internship. My first learning objective was to research the Canvas API, and I got to do this during the initial research phase of the project. My second learning objective was to utilize my game design knowledge to create fun educational games. And I got to do this near the end of the project when we were hashing out exactly what type of game we wanted to make. At the beginning, we had a general idea of what games could be made, but at the end, we decided to nail down what we wanted to make. Finally, I wanted to transform our little company of Stranger Space into a fully fledged developer, and we got to do that by creating an actual revenue stream by selling this project.
So my 3 learning objectives: first one was improve and retain programming experience in a personal setting, professional setting. Throughout this whole summer, I had to do more coding than I think I have had to do in any project learned a ton about C#, and so that was one of the best things. But following coding standards was very important because every one of us was working on something different. So usually in projects that I've done in the past, coding standards haven't been as important, I think, because this is such a bigger scope project. So I really liked getting that experience. The second one was research several topics and learn new programming methods. The point of this was that I wanted to make sure I learned how to learn new things. Because out in the workforce, I'm going to be having to learn new things all the time, stuff that I've never had experience with. And this internship was API calls and web requests, which was I had no idea how to do at the beginning, but I ended up learning how to do pretty quickly. And the last one was increase the notoriety of this company, Stranger Space, and that was pretty simple because we're putting our name on our product and then putting it on the shop, so it will automatically get out there.
So, my learning objectives, research the Canvas API, learn about its functionality. Ooh boy, an original one right here. But as we stated before, we did a lot of research in the API for the first few weeks. And then during the entirety of the project, we were often referring back to the online documentation, making sure everything was in order, making sure that things worked the way we thought they did. I also wanted to create a Unity asset package that provided gamification tools, which is what we did. That's the whole product, and it's currently in our early beta testing, or in our early beta stage. We're making preparations to start testing it in a real classroom setting. I also wanted to utilize and improve on existing gamification methods. This is technically still an ongoing goal as we are developing the first game that would use this asset package.
As far as my learning objectives, my first one was to plan an effective project. Like I said earlier, there was a lot of need for communication and teamwork throughout this project. At the very beginning, we made sure to spend at least 3 weeks researching various things about API, LMS systems, OAuth, and knowing how to write professional code, like you said, and having coding practices. And I feel like that gave me really valuable experience for if I ever work on another team project in the future. For my second learning objective, I wanted to develop some skills. I had a pretty different role in this project than everyone else. I was responsible for most of the graphical elements of our project, so I had a lot of individual research into UI development, learning how to make a nice UI in Unity, not only using their software, but also through code itself. And I also was able to learn Adobe Illustrator to create logos and icons for our project. Finally, I wanted to complete a functional software. I wanted to go through the entire process start to finish, and by the end of it, have a product that I would have my name on, that I could present for future resumes and have my name on a finished product.
So now that we've talked about our internal goals, let's talk about the goals of the project. Oh, excuse me. The first requirement was to be a basic API interface, and that means what Star was talking about a little bit earlier, where this software does the API calls for the developer. So it's a shorthand for them, and it's very easy. Oh, excuse me. So this does a lot of the harder API calls for you, such as authentication, creating new files. Those take multiple HTTP calls to do, and it's all simplified into a single function using our software. The second requirement is the bigger one, which is teacher mode. Teacher mode allows teachers to create an assignment to play the game in Canvas. And it also allows teachers to edit the values in the game. This can be something like math in a physics game, or it could be something like the number of cells in a biology simulation. And we'll show that off a little bit later.
As far as our project design, these were some of the core aspects of our design process before we got started on the actual coding. We took careful steps to ensure that we had a solidified plan for our project so that we wouldn't have later problems with scope creep and unspecified requirements for our project. Our first step was research, as we said before, into the systems that we were going to get into later. And we also made sure to communicate with our supervisors in order to set clear goals. We we had a project management document in order to organize our plan before we got started. And in order to have our requirements solidified, we created Gantt charts and requirements tables.
So we all had a hand in a lot of basic functions like research and project planning, but over time we all developed little specialties, or we specialized in various fields as the project developed. So with Chris, he was our project manager and one of our programmers. So as the project manager, he made sure that all our documents were in order, our project plan was concise and helpful. He made sure we were all actively working on the project each day we were in. We had something that we needed to do. He also, in programming, specialized in OAuth and file creation. The OAuth is important because this is how the Canvas API actually allows external programs to log in and have access to your account. This is what gives them the ability to do things like submit assignments on your behalf. In the text file creation, that's important because this is how we store our data. When the teacher is done editing all the values, they click Create Assignment, and the asset package makes a file that gets stuck in your Canvas folder. And then when the student goes and plays the game, the asset package just pulls that folder out and generates the game based on those values. Cody was another one of our programmers, and he specialized in encryption and basically anything to do with his assignments. The encryption is important for a lot of reasons, the main one being the text file creation. Like I mentioned earlier, we stick all the data in the text files in your folder. Now, for a student to have access to that, that means they can view the text file. And the problem with that would be is if that were just raw text unencrypted, they could look at it very easily, find all the answers, and they wouldn't even have to play the game. So we make sure that all that's encrypted so no one can cheat on the assignment. And for the assignments themselves, we made sure that the asset package can actually make assignments, grade assignments, edit their point values, edit their names, and as well as actually submit assignments on student behalf. Now we go to me. I was another programmer. I specialized in cheat protection and JSON. The cheat protection is really important with submissions because the way that the asset package submits assignments is basically the same as a student going into an assignment and writing in a text entry. And because of that, it would be really easy for the student to go and look at their submission, copy the submission they made, and hand it off to their friends. Not that anyone at this school would do that. But first off, we encrypt every submission you make, and it's unique to each user. But on the off chance you still think it's a good idea to hand it over to your friends, well, if the asset package, when it's grading assignments, finds that the assignment or the submission is invalid and it suspects it's copied, it will not only tell the teacher who copied the assignment, it'll tell them who they copied the assignment from. And then JSON, to put very simply, is the way that basically every API transmits and stores data. So for this, it is very important that I made sure the asset package could read and understand and use the data that's transmitted through JSON. And then finally, we have Elena. She was our graphic designer and artist. She made sure that all of the functionality that we created was actually implemented in our interface. It was all nice and neat and organized and compact without looking cluttered. Everything looks right, and it's everything that has a function is obvious in what it does. Every time we had to add new functionality or change things, she would modify assets or even create new assets to make sure that functionality was actually integrated into our interface. And she'll also be providing the art for the first flagship game that we're developing for this asset package.
So now let's move on to the results of the project. But before we play the video, I just wanted to point out that this might not be as flashy as you might expect. And the reason because of that is this is a piece of software which developers would use to create games. And we don't have our flagship game ready, so instead of that, we have a bit of placeholder UI that simply prints out things and proves that our software works, but it's not as flashy as when a developer gets their hands on it and actually builds a game using our software. So let's just jump into it. So when you boot up any game using this, you're going to see this login page. And you just have to read the instructions, but I'm going to tell you what the instructions say anyway. So then you hit the open login page, and it takes you to your browser where you see your standard Canvas login. Now you can just log in with your credentials, and right now we're going to log in as a teacher to show their point of view. So right now you click authorize, and then you copy the URL into the program, into that field right there, and then click OK. Now you can see all the classes that you're a part of. So let's go into course number 2. We're a teacher in course number 2, so we see teacher mode. There's ints, floats, drop down, and this is a form that you fill out to input data into the game. These int, float, and things would be replaced with names such as mass of ball or number of cells, and that's all up to the developer. So the developer would modify those names before they distribute. You can also test in the game. So we hit test in game, and we're taken to the game itself. Like I said, it's just a bit of placeholder UI to prove that we're sending the values correctly. And then once we're done testing, we can actually create the assignment. So we got points possible, and then you can name your assignment whatever you want. You can also assign your assignment group, so like assignments, quizzes, homework, whatever. Right now we've only got assignments, so we're just going to put it there. And we also included something called problems. And if you add an additional problem, it's like adding another set of those values. So for instance, a game developer could implement this by having one level have one mass, and then another level have a different mass. And the teacher could then define the mass in each individual level. And so that becomes very powerful. Right now we see that we're starting with problem 1. When we hit complete problem, we're now onto the values of problem number 2. And that's just our testing UI again. So now we actually click create assignment. So we're creating the assignment, writing the data, and it's written correctly. But let's just not stop there. If we, by any chance, entered a value incorrectly, no fear. We can still edit the values after the assignment is created. So the teacher can just come back in, they can change it to something else, and hit update assignment values. Now we're in Canvas, so let's see the fruits of our labor. So in assignments, we see that there is an assignment created called Gamification Physics Assignment. And we see that there is a text file that, like what Star was talking about, stores all the data that we just entered. Now we're going to quickly log in as a student this time to see how the student would complete that assignment. So this game would be distributed to both students and teachers, and they would both log in the same way. Again, then copy the URL, go back to the login page, paste, and hit OK. When you're a student, you only see courses that you have an assignment ready to complete in. So in this case, we see those 2. Now we're back into the game that has the placeholder UI, and we can see that we've retrieved all the values from what the teacher said. And then if we hit when we complete the final problem, it automatically submits the assignment for us. And we can see that submission here. It's a bunch of encrypted text like Star was talking about. So now we're logging in as a teacher again, but this time we're assuming that all the students have submitted, because we're going to go in and do auto grading. So we're just going through the login process again, and we'll see that we can go into a class that already has an assignment created, and now we see different options, but we also see the auto grade option. And so if we hit auto grade, it just automatically grades the assignment for us. So it says assignment grading complete, check Canvas. Let's check Canvas. We're checking it as a student, and we see that we've got a 40 out of 40, and that we get a message called this was graded automatically from the teacher. So that's effectively just our product. And of course, like I said, that placeholder UI that you're seeing right now is going to be replaced with an actual game that can retrieve the values and use them in a way that would be game-like.
No.
So, I'm sure a lot of you thought that this was a bit complicated, and while it's true that we had to do a lot of research during the project, we also needed a lot of prior knowledge. For the Unity engine, it was really helpful that a lot of us had taken Game Design 1 and 2, which provided us with an in-depth knowledge of Unity. For software development, project management, senior design, all those provided us with the tools for actually making an effective project, organizing, making documentations, all sorts of things like that. And then Intro to Networks provided us with some cursory knowledge on internet protocols and HTTP calls, which are important because that's what any web-based API is going to use.
Alright, so a summary on what we got from this project. So the first thing is how to initiate and plan a project. These are things that are definitely taught at our school in software engineering and design. But this gave us a more real world experience by creating a product, because we had to just have a couple of weeks for research and planning so that we could get started on this as soon as possible. Another thing was we learned that understanding scope is very important, because what we originally pitched at the beginning of the summer was a lot larger than what we ended up creating. And a lot of that was because some of the really small things that we didn't think would take very much time ended up taking up a lot longer, such as teacher mode. We thought would only take a couple weeks, ended up taking us about a month or so. It was definitely a bigger aspect of the project than we thought. And the third one would be testing and debugging was super important, and still will be once we are getting to the final stages of deploying it on the Unity Asset Store. And we've had to do testing plans before in other classes, but we are actually releasing this product, so we have to make sure it's absolutely perfect. So we spent a lot of effort on the testing plan and debugging. And something that we would definitely want to do for next time we would do a project like this is set up some of the connections that we made a little later into the summer, much earlier, such as with companies that could help us during development. And for this project, that would be Instructure, which is people who make Canvas. And we would very much would have liked to get a connection with them earlier so they could help us out as we're going along. But we ended up just kind of looking at their forums that they have for Canvas developers and asking questions. So that's definitely something we would do different next time.
So does anyone have any questions?
Thank you.
How did you like working as a team this summer?
It's great.
Yeah, a lot of us have worked on team projects before. Like I've worked with Star on a lot of games before, and so we're very used to each other. So this definitely wasn't a new partnership that we were doing. This was we knew each other and we knew our limitations and whatnot. So it was very productive.
Personally, I thought that there might have been some difficulties sometimes, but it ended up working out well, and I thought it was overall very fun to work with everyone.
I know you shared something with me about presenting this at a conference. I'm not sure if Dr. Almashir has heard about this.
Yes, so that was Saturday actually. So the previous Saturday we went to Orlando IX and we presented this along with another game that Stranger Space made. And so we got to talk to different developers, some of which were focusing in educational games, such as a game called Dentist Madness, who we made contact with. Their game was essentially just a VR dentist simulator that would work perfectly with our asset package, so we made contacts with them. And also going forward, this Friday we have a conference call with Instructure, who are the creators of Canvas, and we're going to talk about the Canvas Partnership Program, which involves marketing and stuff related to Canvas.
Orlando IX was a really cool opportunity to meet with people, get our names out there, and then also maybe set up future opportunities with them.
Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.